50 Cent never went to the booth. Not once. No diss track, no bars, no record. Just memes, a deleted photo, and 3 letters. LOL. And somehow, he's still the one controlling the narrative. That's the part nobody is talking about enough. Because while T.I. was recording War and King Harris was going live with raw emotion, 50 was sitting back posting cartoon frogs. One side was working, the other side was watching. And at the end of it all, Wine, the person who did the least amount of traditional hip-hop beef work, came out looking the most in control. But to understand how that happened, you have to look at 4 things simultaneously: T.I.'s timing, King's identity trap, Tiny's silence, and 50's no-bar strategy. Because all 4 are connected, pull any one thread and the whole picture changes. Start with T.I. He came into this situation at one of the most important moments of his career. He's building toward what he's described as his final album, Kill the King. First solo Billboard Hot 100 entry in over a decade recently landed. Comeback energy was real. The timing of a Versus battle, 2 early 2000s heavyweights, catalog versus catalog, Atlanta versus Queens, would have been perfect promotional fuel. Which means when he went on $1 million worth of game and said he and 50 had privately discussed the battle, he wasn't just talking about music. He was building momentum for the most important release of his final chapter. When 50 acted like the conversation never happened, it didn't just disrespect T.I., the rapper, it disrupted T.I., the man preparing his legacy statement. That's a different kind of wound, and 50 knew exactly what he was poking at. Instead of engaging with the Versus properly, 50 reposted old Crime Stoppers footage, dropped King Rat in the comments, a calculated twist on T.Y.'s own title, meaning the name his son literally carries. Snitch allegations flew. What was supposed to be a celebration of 2 catalogs turned into a credibility war. Ty responded by going to the booth. That was the veteran move. He recorded War. He rolled it to Atlanta radio before streaming. Old school, intentional, direct to his city. The bars were there, the intent was clear. But here's the problem. Nobody was talking about the bars. They were talking about the meme. Or that's the first sign that 50 had already shifted the battlefield. Now look at Tiny, Tamika Tiny Harris, Grammy-winning member of Xscape, decades in the industry, public figure in her own right, said absolutely nothing throughout this entire situation. Not one post, not one comment, not one story. Complete silence. And yet she became the center of everything. 50 posted an unflattering photo of her performing. Short caption, warning for T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth. Right? Then he deleted it. By the time it came down, every blog had the screenshot. Every group chat had it. The image was living independently of his page, being reshared by thousands of accounts he had no connection to. He removed the original. The content kept spreading. Tiny never responded, and that silence, whether it was strategic, advised by attorneys, or simply the choice of someone who refused to give the moment more oxygen, turned out to be the most composed response in this entire situation. Everyone else reacted. T.I. dropped records, King went live, 50 posted memes. Tiny didn't move. She was the trigger of everything and the calmest person in the room. That contrast matters. Because it shows that the loudest responses in this beef came from the people who were most emotionally activated. And the people who stayed quiet ended up looking most in control. Tiny understood something that King hadn't learned yet. Which brings us to King. At 21 years old, King Harris had been building something specific. Not just a rap career, an identity. He wanted to be seen as his own man, not T.Y.'s son, not a child of privilege performing toughness. He wanted the culture to take him seriously on his own terms. That identity was already fragile before this beef started. The 2023 Falcons game incident, where T.I. put him in a headlock on Instagram Live for claiming street credibility he didn't have, had already aired the tension publicly. Millions watched a father tell his son he was embarrassing himself and the family. That clip never disappeared. It just waited. But so when 50 posted Tiny's photo and King saw his mother being mocked in front of millions, the reaction wasn't just emotional, it was the collision of everything he'd been trying to prove about himself landing at the worst possible moment. He went live. He fired directly at 50. He posted what appeared to be an image of Sabrina Jackson's headstone, told 50 to dig her up. Sabrina Jackson was 15 when she had Curtis. She raised him alone in South Jamaica, Queens. In 1983, when Curtis was 8 years old, she died in a fire authorities believed was no accident. Drugged, gas left running, case never solved. 50 has carried that loss publicly for over 20 years. It's not background information. It's the foundation of who he became. When King posted that headstone, he wasn't just defending his mother, he was doing the one thing that undid everything he'd been building. Because here's the identity trap King walked into. He spent years trying to prove he was more than T.I.'s son, that he was his own man, that he earned his position. And in one emotional live session, he confirmed the exact narrative his critics had always pushed, that he was young, reactive, and not ready for high-level conflict. The Falcons headlock clip showed King reacting without thinking. The grave post showed it again, except this time the audience was bigger and the opponent was more dangerous. He didn't just cross a line, he handed 50 Cent a gift. Because 50 doesn't need to attack you head-on. He highlights something once and lets the algorithm do the work. Old arrest records surface, old clips recirculate. Every moment where your image doesn't match your narrative gets pulled back up and examined under fresh scrutiny. In 2024, King was arrested in Georgia on an open warrant tied to speeding and driving with a suspended license. That story was barely a footnote at the time. After the grave post went viral, it wasn't a footnote anymore. It became part of a pattern. And patterns, once visible, are hard to shake. King thought he was standing on business. He was actually standing on a trapdoor, and 50's response to all of it? A cartoon frog, LOL, that's the final piece. In some ways, the most remarkable one, 50 Cent won the narrative of this entire beef without recording a single bar. He never stepped into a booth. He never released a song. He never engaged in the traditional way hip-hop beef is supposed to work. He posted a photo, he deleted it, he watched the reaction, he posted a meme. That's it. And yet somehow the conversation isn't T.I. won with war. It isn't King defended his family. It's did King go too far? And is 50 about to respond for real? The person who did the least amount of work is generating the most anticipation. That's not an accident. That's a 2-decade education in how attention actually works. 50 understands something most artists never fully learn. In the social media era, controlling the visual narrative matters more than winning lyrically. Every image associated with this beef came from his account or was a reaction to his account. T.I. and King were responding to his frames. He was never responding to theirs. Tiny's silence was the most composed move. T.I.'s music was the most traditional move. King's live was the most human move. 50's meme was the most strategic move. 4 different responses, 4 different outcomes. And the one who came out looking most in control never even made music. That's what makes this situation different from a standard rap beef. The winner isn't determined by who had the better bars or the more emotional delivery. It's determined by who controlled the story. What got discussed, what got replayed, what got searched, what got amplified. T.I. is heading into his final album with this situation attached to his rollout. Whether that helps or hurts depends on whether the attention converts, but the conversation around him right now isn't about his music. King is still building his identity, still trying to be seen as his own artist, and the image that attached to his name during this period isn't the one that helps that project. Tiny said nothing and looked like the only adult in the room, and 50 Cent posted a frog meme and walks away looking like he won a war he never officially entered. No bars, no booth, no diss track. Just a deleted photo, 3 letters, and the patience to let everyone else destroy themselves. That might be the most 50 Cent thing he's ever done.